A lonely Bavarian farmstead stands beneath a pale moon. Its fields whisper with an unease older than memory. Few lights glow here. Fewer visitors stay long once night settles. Locals speak of strange lights drifting near the tree line, of voices that move across the fields like wandering mist. Hinterkaifeck has earned its reputation quietly, yet persistently. Before the murders shocked the nation, the land itself felt restless, as though something unseen had already rooted itself deep within the shadows surrounding the farm. The Gruber family lived far from neighbours. Their farm bordered thick forests and silence. Andreas and Cecilia managed the land. Their daughter Victoria raised 2 young children. To outsiders, the family seemed ordinary. Steady routines and quiet days defined their life. Yet behind closed doors, tensions simmered, and rumour travelled through nearby villages. Isolation magnifies every whisper and every shadow. At Hinterkaifeck, it settled heavily across the fields, creating an atmosphere that felt watchful long before violence arrived. Months before the tragedy, disturbing events unsettled the home. Footsteps echoed in the attic at night, though no intruder could be found among the beams. Cecilia heard scratching sounds drifting through walls. Andreas searched repeatedly, yet discovered nothing but cold dust. The noises continued regardless. Life carried on outwardly normal, yet the family felt constantly observed. The house seemed to breathe differently, as though a silent guest had made a nest above them. One morning, Andreas discovered the house keys missing. Their disappearance unnerved him more than he admitted. Locked doors no longer protected the family from the surrounding forest. Neighbours later recalled his rising anxiety. He believed someone had entered the house without permission. No explanation eased his fears. Keys rarely vanish without guidance. At Hinterkaifeck, their absence deepened the sense that boundaries had already been crossed by an unseen presence. Fresh snow revealed unfamiliar footprints leading from the forest directly towards the farmhouse. The tracks crossed the yard with deliberate certainty. Andreas followed them carefully. They led straight to a locked door, yet no returning prints could be found anywhere around the farm. It appeared the visitor entered but never left, a physical impossibility that chilled him. The woods remained silent. The attic creaked again that night. Months earlier, the former maid fled the farm abruptly. She insisted the house was haunted and refused to return under any circumstance. She described footsteps across empty floors, whispered voices moving through dark corners, cold patches that wandered like invisible figures. Villagers dismissed her fears then. Now her warnings seemed prophetic. Hinterkaifeck felt less like a home and more like a dwelling already claimed by something unseen. A new maid joined the household on the very day of the murders. She arrived hopeful and unaware of the farm's history of unease. Tension pressed heavily inside the house. Shadows clung to doorways, and silence felt unnaturally thick as she settled in. Though she knew nothing of the previous events, she sensed a presence watching. Her arrival felt like the final piece falling into place before disaster. Night descended quietly across the farm. Animals shifted restlessly in their stalls as the air grew unusually cold. The family followed evening routines, unaware that danger had already crossed the threshold. Lanterns flickered, and doors trembled slightly. Some believed the killer was already inside the attic, waiting patiently. Others claimed something older moved silently through the house, preparing for what would come. The killer lured each family member one by one into the barn, perhaps imitating voices or tapping windows as later stories claimed. Inside the darkened space, the attacks were swift and merciless. Heavy blows fell without warning or sound. The night held its breath. Even the animals remained eerily silent, as if the air itself refused to carry the horror. After the adults were slain, the killer returned for the children, an act revealing cruelty beyond comprehension. Young Cecilia survived for hours. She showed signs of terror so profound, investigators hesitated to speculate. Some whispered she witnessed something monstrous in the rafters. Not just the killer, but a presence that watched with inhuman patience. The new maid was murdered inside the house. She had been at Hinterkaifeck for only a few hours when death found her. Her fate seemed tragically incidental, yet some believe she sensed the haunting more clearly than the family. Her silence marked the final moment before the house fell still, an unnatural stillness that lingered long after the killer departed. For 4 days, smoke drifted from the chimney. Animals were fed, routine tasks continued as though life had not been violently ended. Someone remained inside the farm, moving with calm precision. The thought unsettled investigators deeply. Whether it was the killer or something else, no one can say, but the sense of another presence, performing daily chores, haunts the case. Neighbours eventually approached the farm after days without sight of the family. Unease drove them to investigate. Inside the barn they found the bodies carefully covered with hay, arranged almost purposefully as though watched over. The house felt unnaturally cold. One neighbour refused to enter, claiming something moved behind him, though the rooms were empty. Investigators discovered signs of long habitation in the attic. Disturbed dust, footprints, and food remnants marked the space. Someone had lived above the family unnoticed. Blankets and scattered items revealed patient observation. Some believe the killer hid here for weeks. Others insist more than one presence lingered. Strange humming sounds echoed through the beams, even after searches ended. Locals claim the barn felt alive with leftover energy. Animals resisted entering after the tragedy. Passers-by heard soft whispers at night drifting through cracked boards. Voices layered and indistinct. Whether wind or lingering spirits, these whispers persisted for years. The barn seemed determined to speak its truth. A villager reported seeing a figure standing in the farmhouse window days after the murders, tall, unmoving, and watching the road. Searchers found no one inside. Rooms sat silent and undisturbed. Shadow sightings continued for decades. Many believe the killer returned often, or never left at all. Investigators proposed numerous suspects. Neighbours, relatives, and travelling labourers all fell under suspicion without resolution. Some theories suggest a calculated human motive. Others argue a darker force stalked the family long before the murders. Folklore intertwined with fact until both blurred. Hinterkaifeck became a crossroads where earthly crime and supernatural influence converged. 1 year later, the farm was demolished. Villagers insisted the land needed cleansing. Workers reported sudden cold winds rising from the foundations. Faint cries drifted through falling timbers. Some refused to continue after feeling hands brush their shoulders, though no one stood close. A memorial now marks the site. Visitors leave candles and flowers in quiet remembrance. Many claim to hear footsteps circling behind them, though the fields lie empty. Phones malfunction and recordings capture soft weeping. The land seems to replay grief in endless echoes. Travellers describe glimpsing the farmhouse appearing briefly, as though time folds back onto itself. A lantern glows in a window, then vanishes as the building dissolves into empty air. Whether memory or trauma, These apparitions fueled belief that Hinterkaifeck remains caught between worlds. Several witnesses hear children laughing near the tree line at dusk. Moments later, the laughter turns to crying. No children live nearby. The sounds have no earthly source. These encounters peak around the anniversary of the murders. Some believe the young souls reach out, seeking acknowledgement. A tall figure is often reported crossing the field at twilight, always moving toward the memorial, never away. Its outline shifts like drifting smoke, its pace slow and deliberate. Some claim it's the killer's restless spirit. Others believe it's something older that once lived within the attic's shadows. One theory suggests the killer was not an outsider, but a presence bound to the land long before the Grubers arrived. A force drawn to fear and isolation, watching from rafters and waiting for opportunity. Its intelligence felt chillingly deliberate, as though it knew precisely when to strike and how to remain unseen. The field stands quiet yet feels heavy. Shadows linger longer than expected, and birds avoid the centre. Visitors report cold spots and a pressure on their chest, as though the land remembers everything. The murders remain unsolved, yet the haunting feels active. Hinterkaifeck refuses to let its story fade. Some tragedies scar history, others tear open a doorway between the living and the unseen. Hinterkaifeck belongs firmly to the latter. Facts reveal part of the story, yet the atmosphere suggests much more. Layers of presence and shadow that defy explanation. Perhaps the true mystery is not who committed the murders, but what else shared that home with the family in their final hours.